Hey, it's Chiedu Chukwumah, Space and Equity, where we're all about increasing assets and creating new space. Real bankers for real people. I'm here with my twin with a 2-year separation, Rico Suave, Chiedu. They used to call him Chewy, my younger brother, and the Chief Operating Officer of Space and Equity, Chiedu Chukwumah. It's great to have you, bro.
It's great to be here.
All right,
Yes.
So I'm saying we've transitioned a little bit, and we're getting back to the baseline. So this has always been the pretty boy of the two, skinny jeans wearing, metrosexual, Rico Suave, and I've been the not Kevin Durant style with the ashy legs and the bad haircut at times. I'm not hating because Kevin can play basketball better than I can do anything else on the planet. So I'm not hating. I'm just saying he don't really care about his look. And I've been not that far, but definitely not where you are. But then I had this aha moment when I was looking real good with the Stitch Fix. And now that I'm fully self-employed, 100% entrepreneur, the hoodie game has come back in full effect. And so I'll let you can rock the pretty boy. I'm going to sport the Space and Equity, but it is great to have you.
Yeah.
Great to have you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's not easy being the younger one of the family, but
You got to carve your own space. When
I make ends meet where I can, and the dress, the fit has always been something that I've valued. I think it take a lot after our father, who's actually a pretty fashionable guy.
Yeah. So daddy, Dr. Benjamin Chukwumah. I've never seen that dude come out non-fresh. In fact, to the point where that was sort of I was always follow the rules, and of all the kids, I was gonna be lockstep with whatever daddy wanted. But my rebel was I ain't gonna dress real nice because you always dress real nice, and I realized that was a deficit to me. That was just really stupid. So we out here to talk about we started Space and Equity in April. I think that what happened in the heart of the pandemic, I can't remember exactly when George Floyd was murdered in the streets for the whole world to watch, but I had this epiphany, the pandemic did a lot of things. One of the things it did was a soul searching, and part of it was I've got a life mission that I don't know can be fully fulfilled in the corporate space. Corporate space provided a lot of all the information that we share on Space and Equity is because of my time spent in corporate America. So the education was great. The ability to take care of my family and meet family needs was great. But we were blessed early to invest early. In my 20s, because I had a football scholarship, no student loans, I jumped into real estate early. From there, I did other things and got to the point where I probably made the jump a little earlier than wanted to, but my passion was here and not as much in the corporate space. So it made sense to fulfill the passion to take off the life jacket and swim freely. But while doing that, I got to do that, partner with my brother, who's been an entrepreneur from day one, whether it's coaching soccer, activities in Nigeria. There's a lot of learning lessons to put together to make this marriage work between our partnership. You've always done it. I've done it more in a calculated way, but now we get to launch the 5 scooter stores with partnership with Fred together. We get to launch the podcast, Come Correct podcast together. Tell us about, and for 7 months behind the scenes, you were doing it unpaid. Just finally got first paycheck. We're doing it right, but tell us about how much heavy lifting has taken place behind the scenes from your perspective.
Yeah, so it's been a journey, but it's been fun. From the start. I remember you came with the family to visit in Houston, and you kind of approached me with the idea that you had brewing of starting a podcast, and it kind of caught me from left field because you're the banker. You know what I mean? I wasn't surprised. I wasn't expecting that. But one thing I know about you is that when you put your mind to something, it's gonna happen. Your ability to execute, your ability to focus, and to be goal driven is something that I've always admired over the years. And so when you came to me with that, I was like, okay, serious about this. We're gonna see how that goes. And then throughout the process, I kind of sensed that you really wanted to figure out how you're gonna make that transition fully into this, because you were so passionate. You would say things like, I don't even feel like I'm working when I'm doing space and equity stuff, because it's exciting. And so the energy that you brought to the table is really kind of been encouraging. And then as far as the development from where we started to where we are now, a lot of things kind of learning as we go, kind of figuring out as we go, but just putting things together. It's been a fun ride so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we've done a lot. When we initially conceived of Space and Equity, Scooters, the coffee brand, wasn't even part of the equation.
That's true.
Space and Equity was like, hey, this is what we thought. This is what came to mind. There is a wealth building tool that is known by a lot of the business community and is not known within our community. People don't see the bank for what the bank is, a business partner that appropriates capital, takes cash, and deploys it to the best project it deems fit to grow that city, to grow that economy for a fee. They take your money, invest into Brock's project, and if Brock Projects turns out based on their calculations, then they make money, they charge them for that project, and they make money, bring it back to you. And this cash is what people use to grow wealth, build enterprise. Capital comes from equity and debt. Equity is the cash that you and I bring to the table, that our investors bring to the table, and debt typically comes from the banking institution, from the institutions like the insurance companies that deploy their cash towards debt, from qualified institutional buyers that will give bond money, which is essentially an IOU, to like the city of Dallas to build a hospital in the city of Dallas. And what has been the challenge for those who have less than 0.5% of all the wealth that is circulated in this country is we just don't know how to procure that cash. And so I said the first step for me was in 2018. I said, look, I was a hustler. By 2018, I've been a banker for about 11 years, 12 years, a commercial banker, just for about 2 years at that point. And I noticed that I was like, man, when you are a banker, you hustle really hard. You want to take care of your clients. The sales cycle is very long. And sometimes you deal with people you just don't want to deal with because they're rude. They don't respect what you bring to the table. They don't understand what you bring to the table. So I had this epiphany. I said, hey, I'm only going to work with people who respect me, period. I'm going to show them respect like I always have. And if they're not willing to respect me or don't even see that as a thing to consider, I'm not working with them. And so I eliminated a lot of clients that I just was a struggle dealing with. But what it also did was it was a demographic approach to it, meaning, of course, I had excellent Caucasian clients that I still hold dearly today, still would do business with if I was in commercial banking, if I ever go back, would do it today. But it eliminated a lot because what we found was in wealth, there is the sometimes exceptional black guy syndrome, meaning first I'm checking you out, like, can you actually serve my needs? Do you know how to serve my needs? Then I realize, oh, you're really good. And I feel good about working with you, just like I feel good about working with anybody else. But don't make one mistake, because then I go back to, are you supposed to be in this space? So I eliminated those guys who didn't want to respect the full humanity of myself. But I also noticed a trend was there was a group of clients, primarily African American, sometimes Indian American, sometimes Pakistani American, that struggled getting the natural respect they deserve by the status or of what they brought to the table. And there was a connection like, oh man, this guy doesn't question me the way some of the other people. He questions because he has to do his due diligence, but he doesn't question, like, judge whether or not I should be in this space. And so then we made a connection. And then I found myself in 2020, $34 million in loan production total between the two institutions I was at, just shy of $35 million. And only 10 of that was to Caucasian Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And then the following year, the fall of 2021, before our transition, roughly 20 million. And that's all to Nigerian and African Americans and Indian Americans. So I didn't set out to do 54 million primarily to non-whites, but because I put that stamp on only working with people that were going to respect me, that's how it played itself out. Mm-hmm. And so bringing that to space and equity, how do I educate a group of people that generally don't have this information? And when I say a group of people, that's white, black, yellow, green. That's all of us that typically don't have this information. But how do I educate those who don't know how wealth is created or don't know the full scope of how wealth is created? How do I make that commonplace so it becomes like driving a car? And that's where space and equity said, we're going to increase assets and create new space by doing just that, providing the tools where if you come correct, they can't stop you.
Yep.
That's how we got to the space. So we get to the space, we start doing a podcast, and we're like, we're going to have people on podcast. We're going to do it via Zoom, and it'll be so exciting to talk about these boring financial concepts. And then I had another thing. That before you came on, you were working on the website, put together a great website. I was, we're going to do the podcast. We're going to do the podcast. We're going to launch in February. We're going to launch in February. We launched in late September.
Yeah.
Right? But before we launched in late September, we got introduced to Firebrand Media. We got introduced to Reeves, SMM experts. And we were doing a podcast for another one of their clients, Alvin Hope Johnson. And boom, like after the podcast, there was a couple of interns there. And they were like, hey, man, that was really cool what you had to say. What's your IG handle? I was like, oh man, I got like 4 followers. I've posted twice. So I give them the handle. I'm doing all this prefacing. Well, you see what had happened was. But after they saw, they're like, this guy ain't got nothing to say. So I realized, hey, to be dynamic, we got to play in this social media space and we got to do it right. So we brought on the team that we have today, and we've got the podcast that we got today, and we've got some of the connections that we had today. And then we get brilliant folks like Chris Fisher to come on the podcast and talk about how wealth is created, where capital stacks come from. And he was dropping gems, and everybody was like, whoa, 75% of that's over my head.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're here to do is we saw a need to break down some of these episodes in a way that people can understand. All right. So before we go into breaking down what a bond is, I want to talk about some of your entrepreneurial experiences and what you learned from it. Mm-hmm. You spent a good 2 years. What time frame were you in Nigeria the longest?
I was in Nigeria from 2014 to 2017. Mm-hmm. That was the longest span I had been there without coming back to the U.S.
Okay.
I had been before that, right after I graduated from university. Around 2006, 2007, I went back and I was playing soccer.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then when I went back for that, I was like, wow, because it hadn't been since I was a baby. Yeah. I didn't have any memories from Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So going back and just kind of instantly feeling at home, even though I haven't spent
it's like
time
a homing
there.
device almost.
Yeah, it's like I just saw people that kind of acted like I did, looked like I did, and it felt right. And so from that experience, I knew that I really wanted to do something in Nigeria. I wanted to pursue business in Nigeria, and I was going to figure out how to make my way back. So fast forward a number of years, I basically started a consulting firm. I wanted to help foreign companies bring their products and services into Nigeria,
Okay.
because like I saw there's a lot of opportunity here, but people that are out from the outside have stereotypes, or they don't know, or
Yeah.
you know, it seems too risky to enter the market. So why don't I try
It's
and
dual
bridge that gap?
citizen,
Yeah,
can
I
bridge
can be
that.
back and forth. So that's kind of what I did. And my first project, well, actually I had a couple projects. Very first project, I had teamed up with this small company out of Arizona, and they had developed what they called a firepower. So it was basically like a heating device that you could heat up and use to charge your cell phone or generate light. You know, because in Nigeria, electricity is a huge issue, especially in the more rural areas that don't have electricity. So this is a small device to kind of bridge that gap. And that was a interesting learning experience because I was really excited about it and ready to go, but the company in Arizona, they weren't quite ready to deliver. So that kind of slowed things down. But through that process, I had made some contacts in Nigeria. I got a little bit of taste of what the what how business is done there, and then I was able to follow up with another product that was actually a larvicide or a pest control. Malaria is the number one killer in Nigeria. So this product that I had was a company based out of the UK, and they had developed it was a green product too. So it had all these great benefits, and oh man, malaria is the number one killer in the country. So no brainer, like this is gonna go well. And I quickly found out that there's a lot of hurdles, a lot of steps, a lot of preparation that's needed to be able to bring something like that into a country like Nigeria. For one, it's a public issue. You got to deal with the government to get approval and to get it in. So then when you think about that, you got to deal with politics. So that was interesting. And when I went in 2014, they were under the Goodluck Jonathan presidency regime. And then in 2015 is when Buhari came in. So in a country like Nigeria, when a new regime comes in, everything changes. You restart everything. So like the period that I was there, I need to get approvals. I need to get people to sign off. You know, it's got to benefit. It's got to benefit the person I'm dealing with, and they're in the middle of change the regime. So that was a hard one to overcome. So you know, from there, you know, good learning experiences. I think I could have done a better job of finding mentorship early on. Maybe getting a better picture of the landscape of what to expect, so that when I got there, I was more prepared. I feel like I wasn't as prepared as I needed to be, but I didn't realize that going in ahead of time.
It's funny. It reminds me of one of the things Fish shared is starting for a business from scratch is overrated. And what he means by that is like you can buy a business that has cash flow. If you're entering into a market, you need to enter into that market with the experts and say, hey, don't go here. There's a landmine right here. Go here. And sometimes that engages sharing maybe some of your intellectual propriety capital that is proprietary. But if you need to step in, you get in there with somebody you trust, but that somebody's trust brings a skill set of knowing the landscape is necessary. So it's almost like, hey, don't start a business from scratch. Bring a mentor on. Like Master P knew that he wanted to own his own masters and control his distribution, but he didn't know how, so he paid for the mentorship. You know, I got to talking like I always do, so we're only going to be able to tackle one of the topics that Fish brought up, and I want to talk about the know the game that's being played. How did he describe it? You tell me, and then we'll dive into what that means.
At the end of the day, and I'm saying this to y'all in the camera, at the end of the day, you have to know the rules of the game, period. So if you really want to get ahead in the game, regardless of where you're at in the position, you need to know who you are as related to the game in the system, and then how the game really works, and the tools that are associated with it. Know those three things, then it allows you to maneuver a lot better in your decision making process.
Absolutely.
The rules of the game.
The rules of the
The
game.
rules of the game is key to understand. And he said, who are you in the system? He said, how does the game work?
Yeah.
And what tools do you need to operate in order to play?
Absolutely.
So that was an area that you guys touched on briefly, but I wish you guys would have went a little deeper to kind of break those things down. So I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think?
So knowing the whole picture, knowing the 30,000 foot view, what spawned that part of the conversation was we were talking about the 401k and who's benefiting from the 401k, and then what's the deeper meaning behind it. So let's say you work for a banking institution, like I've worked for most of my career, and the banking institution is publicly traded. First off, the employee is benefiting from the 401k. Oftentimes, there's an employee match, 3%, maybe up to 6%. So they're saying, you save 3% of your salary, we're going to match 3% of your salary. Well, that's your money that's growing. It's just because the 401k has rules on deployment, you're putting that money in tax deferred, meaning you're not paying any taxes on it. You can't use it in taxable exchange until you hit that qualified time in your life, whether you're 60 and a half years old, right? If you use it for other reasons, you're going to be taxed on it. There may be some exemptions, but for the most part, you're going to be taxed. But the employee's benefiting. Well, they put all these rules in place. Why? We just talked about you work for a bank. It's publicly traded. That publicly traded bank needs capital. They get investors. You're one of the investors. So, hey, what's a good way to get a group of investors bought in? Let's take our pool of 100,000 employees, incentivize them to save their money with us, and we're going to deploy that capital to our projects. So they're benefiting. Who are you in the game? If I'm the employee, nothing wrong with that, but know that my money that I'm saving, because I earned it, they're taking part of my salary I earned and segmenting it away to grow their business right now, and I'm going to grow my wealth later. So we buy into these tools like there's only one way to do it. I don't want to use the term pawn because that's a negative connotation, but you are a player with lesser consequence in that equation. Nothing wrong with that, but just know your money is being used to grow somebody's wealth right now. So how do I play the 401 game? The system is capital. Equity, we talked about equity, is that capital that you're putting, you're giving them equity, but for them, that's debt that they're using to grow wealth. You can be that person that controls a 401k with a self-directed IRA and do the exact same thing. So what's a self-directed IRA? Self-directed is just as it's implied. I control how that money is used. I have to play the same rules, though, that exist in the tax code for the 401k. So if I'm controlling it, and let's say I say, let me take my $70,000 that's in this 401k that I've grown for 6 years, and I'm going to take it. I'm not going to take all of it. I may take $35,000. I want to invest in some real estate. That $35,000 stays tax deferred, but I have to create an entity that said, hey, this is a tax deferred product. I have to track the revenues through that. So I can't take the $35,000 to dump into a business that's struggling to get capital. No, that's a taxable event. But I can control it to direct it towards an investment that's growing for me in the future too, that I have more control over. But then I've got to segment it away from my taxable money. It's self-directed. So part of the way we grew the opportunity to buy in scooters is some self-directed IRA money. When I left Truist Bank and went over to B1 Bank, I took $100,000 and I invested in some real estate. I invested in scooters. And my wife, we kind of did the same with some of her money. We used our capital. We bet on ourselves. We believed in the franchise that we're buying into. We believe it can be accretive enough to give us returns greater than the returns that we may have been getting in the traditional 401k. We didn't take all the money out of the traditional 401k, but we took some of the money.
So the money that you take out, now does your employer benefit off the
When I take the capital from the system, they don't benefit. It's mine.
It's yours.
It's mine. Now, if I take it out, so that's employers hate when you go and you borrow. They don't mind borrowing against the 401k because they can make off of that. But if you just withdraw, let's say you have a family emergency, somebody dies in Nigeria, and you got to get there, you weren't expected. That can be an event for you to debit or withdraw. They don't just let you withdraw for whatever reason without tax.
You pay
because they're losing the benefit of that capital when you're taking it out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still your money that you get. They have to give you notifications of how they're spending your money, how they're performing. I've had an employer that was performing so poorly on their 401k in the system that they were sued by individuals, and then somebody else had to perform that 401k.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's knowing where you are in the system and then what controls you have and you don't have.
And then, so what other tools can you speak on?
What are the tools? He talked about using deploying cash value life insurance. That's a tool of high W-2 earners to defer tax expenses. I will say there's a challenge with that tool is that they don't really want you to take that capital out either. So when it's time to use it, they'll often say, we can borrow against it at rates way more expensive than you should pay on your cash. But it is a great tool because there's tax deferred nature of it. Mm-hmm. You can actually leverage that as part of your collateral on a loan. Let's say you have $600,000 in life insurance. You can pledge some of that $600,000 cash value life insurance towards a loan. If your institution should allow you to pledge it, it's your money without pulling it out. So now, hey, I need to put an equity injection on a loan. Instead of actually putting cash down, you can pledge some of the cash value life insurance towards a tool, and that's also tax deferred. So there's tools out there knowing the full gamut of what's available. And you don't have to know anything, but you do have to know who are my partners, experts in this space. I'm not an attorney. I'm going to call Sean Tate to do my attorney work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to look at Larry West for tax strategy. I'm going to look at David Alway, who's my tax advisor. But they're going to be on my team. I don't have to know what they know. I have to trust that they're giving me the best advice, and I just throw the trust out there the way we do with anything. You earn it. It's maintained if you do well by me. If you do bad by me, I have to pull some of that reins back. But I do still, to be in community, I have to trust.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about building your team.
Absolutely.
To move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, man, there's so many more nuggets. We're out of time, but it's great to have you. We're going to have you back. We're going to break down some more of these episodes, more of Fish's episode. I know there's going to be stuff with Larry West at PB Strategies to break down. So great to have you, bro. Love you.
Always.
We're going to keep growing this thing. Well, let's try to do this on a quarterly basis.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so you know where to find us. This is the Space and Equity team. This is part of the Space and Equity team. You can find us on IG at OB_empowers. Come Correct Podcast on YouTube, on Spotify. Check us out at our website where you can get this paraphernalia. This is Come Correct and they can't stop you. Pay for it. Remind yourself to come correct. We're giving you the financial tools to have independence, to have autonomy, to enhance that self-actualization that we all seek to have as we grow and navigate through this world. Come correct. They can't stop you.